Diz here, just getting ready to slap a Silber Turbo into this Ski-Doo 850. First, let's take a look at what comes in the kit. All right, here we are. This is what comes in the box when you order a Silber kit for your 850. First off, we got our throttle body adapters, then followed up right by the beautiful silicone charge tube and silicone cold air intake. We have the nice AIRBOX. We got our coolant lines, our oil lines, and then we have an extension for the map sensor, which is packaged right next to the extra exhaust springs. And then we have a clutch weight kit, a helix for your secondary, and then depending on the year of your sled, if it's a 17, it'll come with one spring for your secondary, and if it's an 18, it'll come with a spring for your primary and your secondary. And then of course we have the spanner for the external wastegate. It comes with a 3 and 5 pound spring, and then preloaded with a 7-pound spring. And then of course we have our stainless steel, solid constructed turbo assembly with external wastegate. All right, that's what comes in the box. Let's throw it on the sled. All right, here we go. We're gonna do a bolt by bolt install of the Silber Turbo kit. And to help us, we got Corey Boston joining us.
All right guys, hey, thanks for tuning in here. We're gonna go ahead and show you guys how easy these kits are to install. So now's as good a time as any to get started. The first step, you're gonna use a Torx 25. Okay, we're gonna unplug this connector. We're gonna remove these two clips holding the pipes, the clamshell, springs. $10mm. So now we're going to transfer the rubber grommets.
All right, then we're going to want to transfer the sensor.
We're going to remove the lock washer, put some anti-sieze on the threads.
What size is that?
17mm, and then we're going to leave it loose until final install. 8mm. And you need to push up on this clip. unhook that and then remove it from the chain case. I'm gonna unplug this connector. Again, you have to push up on the bottom of the connector to release it. We're going to unplug these connectors. And then we're going to remove 8mm wrench.
Go ahead.
Okay, with this, it's real important to be gentle. You're going to gently pry the ears of that clip, the blue clip off, and then it'll come out the back.
Okay.
And then you're going to push on this white connector, or on that little spot right there, you're going to push, and then it'll come off easy. If it doesn't come off easy, you're doing something wrong. Don't break. Okay, we're gonna move the coolant bottle out of the way. Just gently pull it and it'll come over the rubber connector. Just be gentle. On this fuel line, there's no protective clip. You're just gonna push the white and gently pull down. If it doesn't come off easy, something's wrong. And then we're gonna slide this forward. Be gentle with it. It'll come off like that. Okay, now we're gonna remove the main harness clips. I'm pointing, there's a little button there that prevents it from opening on its own, so you have to press that button. There's a little detent right there. That detent has to be pushed, and that will allow you to rock the connector forward. So again, make sure that detent is pushed and everything goes smoothly. If you have to force it, you're doing something. And then gently pull that up and the ECU will come out from behind it. And then we're going to pull the harness from around, freeing up these connections. Then we're going to release the clips and then we're going to slide them forward. You can see we're just using a flat blade screwdriver, gently. Again, don't force it or you'll break the clips. And then we can remove the ECU now.
All right, now that you got your ECU out, you want to make sure to wrap that up, protect it with some bubble wrap, put it in a nice box and get it off to Silber where they can reflash it and get it back to you in a few days.
Now we're going to remove the clutch cover. Okay, to access the primary bolt, you need to remove this little plastic cover. Inside, there's a little cotter pin. You pull that cotter pin out, and then you'll be able to remove the cover and access the primary clutch bolt. Now you're gonna hold the clutch, and you're gonna use a 21mm socket, 12 point, and you're gonna loosen the clutch bolt. The clutch bolt.
All right, now it's time to remove the primary clutch, and you have two options. If you have a clutch puller, go ahead and use that. If not, you can use the stock bolt along with some Teflon tape, a little bit of water, use the hydraulic trip. We'll show you how.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take the bolt. We're gonna take our Teflon tape. We're gonna give it a couple of turns to help keep that water in there. We're gonna fill the clutch bolt hole with water. Then we're gonna start the bolt. Okay, so now we're gonna hold our clutch again. And we're gonna just screw the bolt in until the clutch comes off. It's that easy. Now that the clutch is broke free, you can go ahead and remove it. We're gonna remove this body clip. And then we're gonna remove this felt shield. Okay, the next step is to remove the jack shaft. We're gonna start by removing this 13mm nut on the back of this bracket that holds the jack shaft in. It's just a 13mm wrench. Having a swivel head ratchet wrench just makes the job easy, but it's not required. Okay, now we're gonna release the chain tension. So one big thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna mark whatever device we're using, whether it's a socket, whether an extension or whatever it is, and we're gonna remove it when we loosen it. We wanna make sure we count the number of turns so that when we put it back, we get the chain to the exact same place it started. So the first thing we're gonna do is pull the pin, and then we're gonna turn it counterclockwise. 12 turns there, and then we'll put the pin back in to secure it. And remove the jack shaft. The first thing we need to do is we need to take out the fill plug. You just use a flathead screwdriver and just gently pry that out. And then we're going to use a 15mm socket, and we're going to remove the bolt underneath here. You need to make sure that you don't drop the washer and the bolt down in the hole, otherwise you're going to be taking the chain case off. Just be real gentle with it when it comes out. And this is the part where you're going to need your buddy to give you a tug. We need to make sure that we take our screwdriver, we're going to stick it into the jack shaft so that we secure the upper gear and don't drop it down into the chain case. So go ahead and pull the jack shaft out. There you go. Now we're just going to leave the screwdriver in there so that we don't drop the gear down. Just leave the screwdriver. Okay, the next step is to remove this brace here that runs through the middle of the airbox. To do that, you're going to use a 10mm socket. Okay, now we're going to loosen up the clamps holding the airbox to the throttle bodies just to fill up the screwdriver. Here it helps to have a long screwdriver. The airbox, there's two plastic clips that it sets down in. And then we're going to slide the pyramid brace up and out the front. Fuel line on, then you're just going to pull the airbox out. You might have to be a little forceful with it, but don't break anything. Okay, now we're going to install our throttle body adapters. To do that, we're going to use a 5/64 Allen wrench and a 5/16 wrench. You can also use the 8mm that you had out earlier. That'll work as well. We're going to go ahead and lube up these O-rings to make it go on easier. The O-rings, and then we're going to install it, paying attention to where we're going to line that hole up with that hole in the throttle body. Then we're going to insert the bolt. When you do your final tightening on this, you want to be careful not to use the Allen key to do the tightening. You want to use the wrench. Okay, and for the inboard throttle body adapter, there's actually a zip tie that uses the stud hole that we need. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. And that'll allow our bolt to go through. We'll go ahead and lube up the O-ring before we install it. And again, we're going to make sure we line up the hole in the throttle body with the hole that's in the... If you don't get it just right, that's fine. You can spin the adapter to get it lined up where it needs to go. Now it's time to install the AIRBOX. We're going to make sure that we loosen these clamps up a lot so we can get them on there. Also pay note to the orientation. Each clamp is facing up. Okay, once you have the AIRBOX fully seated, we're going to go ahead and tighten up the clamps. And for this, I'm using a 6mm nut driver. We're going to go ahead and remove the bolt and nut all the way. The other reverse. And once we're going to use our tool to spread it apart. Then we're going to insert our Straightline Performance secondary tool. Then we're going to use a T40 on our impact to remove the nuts. That'll allow us to
Grab the screw.
Secondary spring, we want to make sure we take the plastic washer and put it back on the top the way it was. So we're going to go ahead and insert that. And then we're going to insert our new helix. So now we've got the cup and the new spring. Now we've got our new helix on. And we're going to make sure that when we screw it down, that we make sure that we center over the helix so that we don't let anything bind. When you're doing it, just the spring pressure. Once you get it close, you can see where the bolt holes line up. You're going to keep screwing the collar in until you feel it bottom out. Okay, once you have everything lined up, you're going to apply Loctite and reinsert the bolts. primary clutch. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mark the clutch to make sure we get everything aligned the same way it was when we started. You can see on the factory one, there's an arrow. We're just gonna mark that. We're gonna mark the 0, and then we're gonna mark across from it. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a T40 and we're gonna loosen up the dampener cap bolts. And then we're gonna use either our clutch puller, or you can use your bolt to separate the two clutch halves. You're gonna wanna screw that in about a 1/2 inch. And then you're gonna hold it up a little and you're gonna hit it with a hammer. This one came apart easy because it's already been apart once. At home, you may have to give it some effort. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove the bolts out of the cap. And we'll move on to the changing. For this demonstration, I'm using the clutch puller we have. Ski-Doo makes one where you don't have to remove this, but we're using what we have here in the shop. Okay, once you have the spring compressed, there's little flat spots. You're gonna rotate the clip to one of those flat spots like that. And then you can either use a lock ring tool, or you can use a pair of. Then you're just gonna work the clip around and off. And then you're gonna unscrew the press. We're gonna put our new primary spring in. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and insert the snap ring.
Move your right hand. There you go.
Okay, once it's secured, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use our pick and we're gonna slide it away from the notched area so that it sits in a round spot. Now we're going to install the two pieces back together. We're going to install our dampening cap. Then we're going to make sure our clutch lines up with the marks we had made previously. On an 18, there's also a plus and a minus. So if you for some reason lost your marks, you can put a straight edge on it and you can line it up that way.
Move your right arm.
You can line it up that way as well. Line up the two, the plus and the minus. And now we're gonna go ahead and install our clutch pivot bolt weights. We're gonna remove the pivot bolt with a T25. And then for our application between 8 and 12,000 feet, we're gonna run 5.75 grams. To get us there, we're gonna use the 1/4 inch washer, which is 4.5 grams, and the 1/16 inch washer, which is 1.25. And then we're gonna take those and we're gonna put those onto the pivot bolt. Then we're gonna line everything back up. Then we're gonna start the pivot bolt. And at this point, we're gonna adjust our clickers. So we're gonna start with our clickers in the 1 position. So you just turn it, rotate it down until the 1 lines up with the groove. And then we can go ahead and tighten our pivot bolt. And we're gonna repeat for the other 2. Okay, now we're gonna remove the guard that's protecting the oil pump. To do that, we have a Torx 20. We're gonna remove these 2 screws here. Then we're gonna use a 10mm, and we're gonna move the 2 bolts. Exposes the oil pump. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make room. So we're gonna mark this oil line right here in the front with a 1, and then we're gonna mark the line with a 1, so that we make sure that goes right back to the same spot. And then we're gonna remove the clamp. And then we're gonna remove the line gently. We'll get that out of the way. And then we're gonna remove the 2 oil lines going to the rave valves. These 2 little ones here. Again, just gently. Okay, so now we've got our 2 rave valve lines that are disconnected from the pump. And we've removed the one that was coming off that port right there. Okay, now that we've trimmed our supply line for the Y fitting, we're gonna install the rave valve lines to it. We're gonna do the longer one to the right side. And first, we're gonna put the supplied clamp on. And then we're gonna put the hose on. And then we're gonna put the supplied clamp on. Okay, now we're gonna install the oil feed line. We're just gonna run it down the side of the tube here. Then we're gonna reach in and grab it. We just wanna make sure that we run it behind the existing oil line hose. Then we'll just leave it hanging off the side. And then when it pulls out, it'll come right through here, and then we're gonna leave it hanging for now. Okay, now we're gonna install the jack shaft back in. So you're gonna have your buddy, basically you're keeping your screwdriver in the end of the shaft, and then you're just gonna push in slowly until you get the chain lined up. Okay. Keep pushing as you turn, Dave. Keep turning, pushing. Keep going. Okay, keep going.
It's in the bearing.
It's in. All righty. Our wrench, just like we had before, we put a line on it. We're gonna pull the pin, and then we're gonna tighten it 12 turns. And then we're gonna replace the clip. And that puts us to where we were when now that our chain case is tensioned, we can go ahead and replace the fill plug. Replace this support here. Make sure when we're running it down that we run it through the O-ring that's attached to the spark plug wires. So when we're doing it down here, we're gonna make sure that we sandwich it in between the two plates. Go ahead and install the charge tube. To do this, we're gonna loosen up the clamps that are provided. The one that goes on the charge tube, we're just gonna stick over there so it doesn't get on anything. And the one that we're, the other end, we're just gonna take off so that it doesn't scratch anything as we're muscling it through. Okay, now we're gonna reinstall the ECU. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the fuel line and we're gonna plug it back into this bottom port. Then we're gonna take our connectors and we're gonna reconnect them. Once they get started, it's just you're just gonna rotate the connector and then they snap it. Okay, now we're gonna we're gonna connect the top fuel line in. Okay, now that we have everything connected to the ECU, but while it's still in here loose, we're gonna reattach our wires to the ECU. We're gonna start with the biggest one first, and then the middle size one, and then the small one. And then we're also gonna reattach this one to the ECU. Okay, now we're gonna put the ECU in place. It's important to make sure that the little catch behind the ECU goes around that pyramid support. Okay, now we're going to reconnect the wires. Big one, middle one, small one. We're also going to take this one here and it's going to go back into place here. And then once it's in, we're going to push the lock down. And then if you have the shot system, we're going to secure this plug back to the chain case. It just pushes on, and then we'll plug our shot in. Then we'll lock it in place. We've properly secured all the wires back with our zip ties. We're going to go ahead and put the coolant bottle back into location. Again, being gentle and just kind of pulling on it to get the rubber tab or the rubber nipple to come through and secure it. Okay, the next step is we're going to remove this Oetiker clamp from the coolant bottle. A good sharp pair of diagonal cutters will do the job. The big thing is make sure you cut the clamp and don't put pressure on the nipple of the AIRBOX, because once you've removed the clamp, gently pull the hose straight off so you don't break the bottle. And then you're just going to take the individual fitting that came in your kit and you're going to just push it in. Like so. There's no clamps needed, it's a push lock fitting. Okay, now that we've installed the individual fitting, we're going to install the hose with the fitting. We're going to push it straight on so we don't break that nipple off. We're going to put the clamp on. Okay, now we need to extend the EGT probe wire. To do that, we're going to cut the zip tie, and then we're going to release the clip, the connector, and then we're just going to unwind the tape. Okay, now that we've got the tape off and the shroud off, we're going to just gently work our way up. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take these wires and bring them back. We're just trying to get them to where we have a little more length. Okay, now that we've separated the wires, this is what we're looking for. You can go ahead and wrap some electrical tape or something around that to go ahead and protect it. Okay, now that we've separated and protected the wires, we're gonna go ahead and run it back underneath, and we're gonna plug it back into its connector. Okay, now we're gonna add the second set of springs. This one you're gonna use the crossbar for leverage. Do the middle one. hoses down away from the exhaust, we're gonna take our heat tape and we're gonna apply it over the spar and over the hoses. Silber recommends a couple layers.
All right, she's in. Now let's start her up. All right, hopefully that install video helped with any concerns or questions you might have when you're putting your Silber Turbo in your very own 850. We wanted to thank the guys at Advantage Motorsports for letting us use their shop for the install, and I'll see you on the mountain.